Hello, this is Shella's Lens, and today we are going to be working on crafting your proposal. This is for the grant funding course. Crafting your proposal. This lecture addresses the key ingredients to a strong needs statement. When clients first sign up with us, we send them a client information form to complete. This form is pretty comprehensive and covers a lot of details that not all of our clients have considered before. Although we do not pressure our clients to submit this form rapidly, we do request that they take the time to complete it thoroughly. The more thorough their response is, the better the grant application we can generate for them. This post discusses one aspect that seems to be a challenge for some of our clients when they first begin. Needs statement. The needs statement is comprised of three basic factors. The need that the funding opportunity is intended to fill, not the organization's need for funding. The organization's familiarity with addressing the defined need. Illustrate the need with a concise but concrete story. Address the need. If the grant application is requesting proposals that fulfill a specific need, then the narrative written about your organization has to demonstrate how your organization is able to address that need. Not only can you demonstrate it, but you can provide step-by-step actions that have already been planned and are either in motion or easily implementable upon approval of funding. Foundations want to see that you can follow through. They don't like to receive applications that demonstrate how needy you are. They are in the grant business to fulfill their own need to see certain things in this world come to fruition. That does not mean you cater your organization's efforts just to suit a foundation, but rather that you are able to demonstrate how what you do fits in perfect alignment with what the foundation's goals are. It's a partnership. It's not a donation center and a needy recipient. No matter how desperate your financial situation is, you cannot seek grant funding from a position that is focused on you and your current difficult situation. It must be focused on the difficult situation you are solving and how you demonstrate that you are the right organization to attend to this situation in the most effective manner. As such, the need must be defined from the perspective of the public interest, not the nonprofit's interest. When a client shares what they do, they need to be sure to clarify to us how they are helping their community and why their services are vital to that community. This includes demonstrating what will happen if your organization does not obtain the support to help that community with their unique service model. Familiarity. This means that the organization must be very familiar with the need in the community. We rarely get inquiries into our services from people who don't already have a deep passion for their organization's mission to address a serious situation in their community. However, not all clients are great with demonstrating this in their client information form. They provide a quick response or they repeat things from other questions without actually addressing the question at hand. You really can't complete this form in haste. Take the time to really reflect upon the differences between each question. The familiarity with the problem may mean a lot more detail than what you previously mentioned in another question we had asked. This is an opportunity to expand on the details so that we have a really strong opportunity to advocate for your organization's efforts with the Foundation's grant proposal request. Factors to also consider in this step include details that your team members have accomplished. Explain how you have effective partnerships with other local organizations that support your organization's cause, which can include two organizations working together to address a community need. Provide as much detail as you can about how your partners contribute and what roles they play. Story. Story is something that can take off like a runaway train. So we are quite careful with this aspect. It does reinforce your application to have a real-world example of how your organization's services are providing relief and fulfilling a community need. Stories can be brief, but also make a strong impact if they are clear and direct demonstration of how powerful the benefits of your services are on those who receive them. This can help reinforce a foundation's motivation to fund your organization because that story may very well be the exact thing they were looking to see happen. When they set out an intention to provide funding for a specific type of need, they often have their own visualization of what that may look like. Help them visualize what you do and how it impacts your community. Let them see it through your eyes. Conclusion. The bottom line is what we request that our clients really do a lot of reflecting and detail gathering before submitting their client information form to us. This is a one-time tedious task, but the benefits will far outweigh the effort if done correctly. We encourage any client to consider their responses from the aspects mentioned above to help them provide the right information that will help them achieve their grant funding goals. Next, we will take a look at the client information form. If any of you are current or past clients, you've seen this before, and it may look slightly different visually, but it's the same questions that we've always been using. And so you can see here, we just ask for basic contact information, your EIN, year of foundation, fiscal year dates. This is something that I've noticed quite a few of my nonprofit clients have been confused about. Fiscal year dates are, when does your organization do your accounting? Do you start July 1st and then close out your annual revenues and expenses on June 30th the following year? Or are you on a January 1st through December 31st cycle? Those are the two most common cycles that you will see. So you just have to specify which one that is. Whether you have your letter of determination, if you're using a fiscal sponsor, what's your organization's address information, and then mailing address if different, phone numbers, website, contact person information. And then we get to some of the uploads that you have to do. All right, so in here, we're going to need a copy of your IRS letter of determination, your staff list, which includes the name, title, salary, and if they're full-time, part-time, or volunteer. This is especially true for the clients that have us doing one of the pro subscription services or our mid-level grants, because we may need to provide this information to the funder. Board of Directors list, they want to know the title, the name, the address, phone number, email, and affiliation, which is basically their work outside of your organization. So say they're the board president or the board secretary. Well, what do they do when they're not on your board the rest of the day? Are they a bank representative of some sort? Do they do accounting? Are they a store owner? You have to specify that. Discussing your volunteers and staff for programs, which may be different from your administrative staff. Say you have a summer program that has different staff than you do for the rest of the year. So this would be a program staff list. So you need to include all of those details here. And then this one is very, very important. This is an entire section on your grant proposal, and that is the details about your programs. Now, I've had many clients who give me like 1 or 2 sentence answers on this, and they then say something like, well, we're expecting you to use your skills. And I'm like, well, that's nice. I can research the problem. I can research the statistics. I can research your area. But what I can't research without you telling me is what you actually do. Like, you have to know what you do. So you need to give us details like, what is the schedule of activities? How do you do what you do? What actual activities and programs do you do? How do you implement them? How do you communicate with your clients and your staff? Description of the program, what marketing materials you use, the importance of the program, and the demographics of your program. Those kind of things you have to provide. So this is a very, very critical area that I really can't emphasize enough, that you cannot skimp on this, because if you don't tell us much, we don't have much to write, and then your application will probably be pretty flat, because no funder is going to be impressed with, we help people, we help the homeless. With what? You have to be specific. Okay. So then the next thing is the program evaluation. Now, this is something that the more established nonprofits are already pretty good at, and they already have this in place. For the new nonprofits, they may have no idea what this even means. And so this can be something we can help you put together if it's something that's needed for one of the grants, or even if you're an established nonprofit and you haven't really set up an evaluation process, we can kind of help you implement this. Examples of this would include program name, number served goal, like did you serve as many as you tried to, or did you serve way more than you tried to? That's happened a few times. Goals for the participants. Did they meet their goals? Did they achieve them? What strategies did you use to measure success? Do you use surveys, interviews, exams, demonstrated health improvements, improved academic performance, etc.? And what efforts do you have in place to make adjustments to encourage success for those who fail to succeed? Do you have staff evaluation procedures? And what is your enrollment procedure evaluation? Other things we need include your general operational budget and program budgets, not or. You definitely have to have the general operational. If you have several, at least 2 or 3 possibly, if you have it, previous 990 filings, definitely need the most recent one because that's the one they want to see the most, but some do ask for 3 years worth of 990 reports. Your most recent annual report, and this is the report that you provide to your board. This is not the one that you file with the IRS. This is so that your board members can see what you've accomplished and look for areas for improvement. So they have their own customized report. If you filed the 990 postcard, you can file it at the IRS website, but you can also include that if that's all you have instead of a full 990. Any performance evaluations that you have done for federal and state entities for the last 3 years. I know not everyone will have that, but some do. Your logo and your letterhead, because of course we need to make sure this comes from you, not from us. And then we ask if you have board members or anyone affiliated with your organization that is a member of Congress, congressional staff, or executive branch officials. This matters because some funders won't fund organizations that have political ties. And I have personally worked in a nonprofit that did have a senator on the board. So this is something that is very serious, and you do need to make sure you address this issue if it is something that your organization has, because you need to make sure that the funders don't see a conflict of interest. Now, that particular organization was an arts organization. They were producing music, so there was no political issues there, but other cases can be different. Okay, this is the nitty gritty part where you have to actually write a bunch of stuff. And this is where I really appreciate when the clients say way too much information. I would rather have you ramble on and give me far more information than I need than to say, we serve the homeless. And that's all you tell me, because that doesn't tell me anything. So we like you to be very, very clear in this section, and you can have messy sentences. We don't care because we fix that for you. It's not a problem, but we do need the information. First of all, we're going to go through the organization's profile. The first question is describe your organization's purpose in 3 sentences or less. This is basically your elevator speech. What are you going to tell someone if you meet them in an elevator about what your organization does within 3 sentences? That is what we need to hear here, right in this spot. The official mission statement. Now this, I've noticed not everyone understands what a mission statement is, but the mission statement is something that has to be decided upon amongst the entire board. It's not just one person who just writes whatever they feel like and you just pass that off as the mission statement. It actually has to be decided by all board members so that they feel that you are representing your organization very clearly in this one sentence structure. So you have to be very thorough, use very impactful wording. Don't make it too cheerleadery, but definitely make it clear what the goal of your organization is and how you plan to accomplish that in one sentence. 2 maybe if you're lucky, but most really do limit you on the grant applications. So try to keep it short. Okay, any previously awarded grants, we'd like to see you list who the foundation was, how much they gave you, and what year that was received. All of this helps substantiate for the other future funder why they should give you funding, because you have proof that others have also given you funding, and some have given you funding multiple times. That means that they trust you because you've been very careful with the money. You did what they needed to do. You were accountable. You were responsible, and you accomplished your goals. They like to see history if you have it. So please provide every single little tiny thing, even if it's $1,000. That's great. $1,000 counts. All of it matters. If you have in-kind grants, like people donated items, that is also something that helps. So you can include that as well. But we might have a separate section on that. I can't remember. I have to get there. Okay, now this particular grant that we're applying for you, what is the purpose for this particular grant? What are you trying to raise funds for? Not just, hey, we need $200,000 because our budget's $200,000. Just give us whatever you have. That's not going to work because that doesn't tell them that you even know what you're doing. So if you have, like, say, for example, you need to purchase an item for your after school program, say you need to buy 10 laptops. So in this particular case, you would say we need X $1,000 because we are trying to purchase 10 laptops for our after school program because it grew over the summer and we have now doubled in size. So the current amount of laptops that we have is not sufficient, and we want to ensure that all of the students have the access to the laptops that they're going to need in order to participate in the program. That is something that they will absolutely fund because they see clear growth in your program. First of all, they see that you are worried about the success of the students in your program and that you're trying to provide the tools those students need. This is something they love to fund. So be very specific about what you're going to use that funding for, and that it's something that serves your organization's beneficiaries. The one thing that people need to understand is that a lot of funders really don't like funding salaries. And I know this is a contention with a lot of nonprofits. There are some that leave it open and there's no restrictions. So it's not like there isn't money for that, but you have to be very careful with which foundations you approach with which particular types of requests. If they are more interested in program funding, they might provide funding for program staff because you need those people to teach or whatever it is that they do. Or if it's objects that you need to buy, those are obviously easier to prove because it's, you know, an item that you have to get to the store, you have receipts and everything like that, and they can see that that would be applicable. If it is, you know, just a generic request, then we have to know what you're doing because then we know which types of funders to look for you. Say, for example, you just have a whole lot of administrative costs that you need to cover. A lot of foundations will limit the percentage of what they like to see in your budget that goes towards administrative costs. And we will go into this further on when we get into the budget section of this course. But I just want you aware that if you're assuming that you can magically just get $100,000 for your own personal salary, that you're going to be denied and they're not even going to read your application. Especially if you had no salaries in the past and you're just suddenly starting yourself off with a six-figure salary, which I highly do not recommend. If you're all volunteers, you can start off, you know, looking at the average salary for your particular role in your area. And then I would recommend only suggesting to budget for yourselves a portion of that average salary so that you can demonstrate that you're being responsible with the funding, that you are aware that it's a lot to accomplish and that you're not delusional. I hate to say that word, but it's not, there's no magic money fairies, and they want to see that you're going to do the work to grow your program so that you can be, you know, get yourselves up to those salaries that you already achieve. And then once you do, they love to give you more. It's just a matter of the snowball rolling down the hill. It starts small and they want to see it grow bit by bit. So anyway, explain the purpose of this particular grant request so that we can be very clear in our research and in what we write. Then if you have any grant applications you've already submitted that you're waiting on, just list those here and how much you requested. If any of them are currently pending, like they said, yes, we'll give you the money, but they haven't yet released it, definitely include those and clarify that it is pending. How much money you've already raised for this effort. This one's a big one. A lot of people think that they can start out with grants first. And I'm not saying you can't. It's just very difficult. So it's in your best interest to also be working on fundraising activities, either through fundraising events, online donation drives, community fundraising events, as well as seeking out private donors, because grants don't like to be your only source of revenue. They want to see that you have community support. They want to see that you're doing the groundwork to drum up extra support for your organization around you, not just throwing out a letter and saying, hey, we need $100,000 and expecting the money fairies to show up. That's not how it works. So unfortunately, you're going to have to work a lot on this one. But if you say you've raised zero here, that's to me is a red flag that I need to have a conversation with you to help you get the other stuff moving, because you're going to want that. I've had some clients have grants be denied because they hadn't started fundraising, and they actually had the foundation show up to their facility to look at it. And then when they realized they hadn't done fundraising, they denied them. And it was a very large grant. It was in the millions. So this is not something to joke around about. You need to be very serious. Okay, list current funding sources for this particular effort or project. How much and where they come from. This is important because funders like to know they're not the only donors. They want to know that you have other support, and they want to see, like I said, that you're also making additional efforts to get more, which does include applying for other grants, not just that one. Now, the one thing to also remember, there are some grants that don't want to be the first drop in the bucket, but they love to be the last drop in the bucket. So if you can demonstrate that you have, fundraised maybe half of what you need at the very least, or something like that, demonstrate that here and be very clear, because that will help us find the types of funders that specifically say, absolutely, we like to fund the last 50%. We will do that, because then we can hone in on the right funders to request funding for you. Okay, and here's where you write out the types of fundraising events and efforts you are planning for this project. So if you have other events planned out, tell us about them. If you're having a gala dinner, if you're having a special golf tournament or a race or whatever it is that you do, just write these out here. And then this question is about capital for a building. So if you're purchasing a building or building something new, a physical structure, this is where you would say yes. And if not, then you just check no. And then down here, we are going into more about your organization and this mission, which we started to talk about at the beginning. Tell us more about what you do. I know it feels like this is a redundant question, but maybe after going through the other stuff, it helps you to hone in better on how to explain that. So try to write how the purpose of your organization serves your mission. Be very explicit there. And then here's where you list the actual activity of what your organization does. So if you run an after-school program, you can say we have daily after-school tutoring sessions from 3 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And then sometimes we offer, weekend excursions, or we take them on trips for events, or we have special things that happen. And in the summer, we do a summer camp, whatever it is. List out the activities that you do. And as much as you can, that's helpful. Okay, here is what demographics do you serve. Now, be very specific here, because some foundations, there are some that will say we only fund things that help women and girls. So if you say that you fund men, we can't even look at that grant because they won't fund it. If some of them will say if you're exclusionary in any way, say you only serve women, then they will say we can't fund you because you cannot exclude to any particular group. So you have to tell us what you do with demographics, just so that we're able to select the right funders for you. Otherwise, you'd be wasting your time submitting to some of them if you didn't really clarify for that, and then we chose the wrong funder for you. So be very clear. And then, of course, explain, if they're homeless, if they are domestic violence victims, whatever it is that the demographic covers. Why is your mission important? Now, this is a matter of what is it that made you start your organization? What were you trying to meet? What problem were you trying to solve? The driving force behind your organization. There's a very clear understanding that you already know behind why you chose to form this organization and why you have the mission that you have. It's a very impactful statement. So do take your time to very clearly state why it's so important. On this section, you need to state what other organizations do similar efforts as yours. And this is usually more specific to your location and the areas you serve. So you don't have to say, oh, there's other organizations in other states that do similar things, because that doesn't apply to your neighborhood. And if you only serve the people in your neighborhood and those other organizations don't touch your neighborhood, then they don't matter. You need to only talk about other organizations within your demographic region. And if those same organizations also do the same type of activity like you, there could be variations in what they do than what you do. Like maybe you address a certain language barrier that the others don't, or something like that. But just specify what it is that you do that others also do in a similar vein. And you can also explain how they're a little bit different, because that's actually beneficial. You can also, in the next question, explain which ones you collaborate with. Do you do efforts together? A lot of grants love to fund collaborative efforts because they know their money is going further that way. So if you have collaborative partnerships with any organizations in your community, please do list those here and explain what it is that you do together or what they provide to your clients. What happens if your organization is not in your community? What problem or need will be left unmet? So this kind of goes back to what is the mission and purpose and why is it so important? Well, let's say you serve food and clothing to the homeless. Well, if those people did not have food and did not have clothing, and maybe there's other organizations in the area that do provide some of this, but they can only do so much, and the population of homeless has doubled or tripled in recent years, since COVID's impacted a lot of the economy and all kinds of things have happened. What would happen to those people that you're currently serving? Are they also getting food and clothing from these other organizations? Are those other organizations limited? And what would happen to those people? Just to explain what it is that you would see happening if you weren't doing the work that you're doing and why that is so critical. What data have you collected regarding this problem? Now, we do research in this area, so you don't have to already know everything, but there's a lot of nonprofits that we've worked with that have already done extensive data collection on their entire mission to make sure that they can substantiate every single thing that they're trying to convince their donors to provide funding for, or grants to provide funding for. It helps their cause with their marketing to get the community to provide support. Demographic details or data on the issue really, 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 really matters. So if you've already collected a bunch of information, please provide that information here, or you can even mention some things that perhaps isn't clear in the programs that you've already discussed or the demographics that you've already brought up. If there's a statistic that you want mentioned, to put it down here. We'll still double check it, and then we'll also cite that source, so that way that any grant funders who want to know, well, where did you get that information, we'll take care of that for you. Unless you already know, then just tell us. But either way, we do verify to make sure everything is accurate. Now, before we talked about demographics, this is what geographic area. So if you just serve one city, then just write the city. If you serve an entire region, like say all of Southern California, and that includes several counties, then list out, and as you can see, the next question below is what counties do you serve? So you can put that here. You can just say Southern California here, and then you could list the counties here. And now this one people sometimes misread. It's not counties here. This is countries, which is why we specify USA, Canada, Japan, etc. So if yours is an international organization and you serve more than just the United States or just Canada, then please list Israel, Iraq, the Middle East, Syria, whatever countries. I just list those because I've had some of those. So you can list those countries in there. If you are more multinational, I've had some clients who do rescue efforts in multiple countries across the world. And so they've had several countries that they list there. It's however many you have, just list them all there. Now, this question here is probably one of the most important, and I know a lot of people are very limited in the information they provide on this. Some of you are new, and that's okay. You don't have a huge history, so I understand that. So try to explain the driving force behind why you started. If you can explain information about the founder and why it was so important for them to start the organization. What has the organization accomplished so far? If you've only started, but yet you've already been helping people, list that out and explain the impact that you've had already in your community. If you've been around a while and your organization has gone through a lot of change and maybe you've had some challenges, it's important that you mention that, because we can say something like, the organization's original founder, retired, and then we struggled for a little while, but now we have this phenomenal new executive director and they've taken it in a new direction and we've grown so substantially since then. It shows that your organization has already been through hardship and overcome difficulty. And these are things that funders like to see because they know that you have the ability to keep going even when things become complicated. Now, high turnover, however, is a red flag. So be aware that if you have a board that's letting executive directors go left and right, or executive directors are leaving regularly, that's not a good sign, and that can actually impact your grant funding. In fact, even just having a recent executive director leave and having a temporary interim executive director can also impact your grant funding. So they like to see stability. So try to be careful with your management in general, and try not to let your board be too flippant with their decisions. Make sure that everything is well planned and carried through. So that you can demonstrate stability. But if you have issues, mention them here so that I know what to do with that information, so that I can hopefully present it in a way that the foundation won't go, oh my gosh, we don't want to fund that. We want them to go, wow, they actually handled that really well. And then they feel more comfortable with you because you look like you've got your act together. All right, next question. What populations do you serve? Now that sounds kind of almost like the demographics, but in this case, it's more specific to at-risk youth, homelessness, elderly. It's not men and women per se. It's more of a categorical issue. Like at-risk youth can cover everyone. It can cover disabilities. It can cover gender of any kind. It can cover race of any kind. It's just more a matter of these kids are at risk because they have issues with drugs, or they have issues with academics, or whatever it is that the issue is. So talk about that there. I don't know what happened here. That's kind of funny. Okay, down here, we're going to list the details of each program. So we're going to go into your, that's probably says programs right there. Okay, so list the current programs you already have in operation. So these are the active programs. Please provide the details, explain what they do, and how often they meet, or how many people are in them, and the growth that you've seen, whatever. Just list all of that. Now, this one is what of these programs that you currently have operating that you're seeking grant funding for. So when you originally said, what are you seeking grant funding for at the beginning of this application, you can specify which of these programs are here and explain what you're going to use that funding for. Down here, what programs do you plan to launch with grant funding? This is not commonly supported by foundations, but it can be if the organization has other programs and is actively seeking funding from non-grant sources on a regular basis and can demonstrate strong fundraising efforts. So, say your organization has already been serving domestic violence victims from a certain demographic for a very long time, and you're seeing a shift in your community, and the particular demographic that you serve is now having an explosion of homeless people with new issues that you didn't have before, but it's going to require you to have a new facility. Like say before you were just serving women, and now suddenly you need to worry about elderly, and there could be men in there. So you might need to create a male facility. And so you need to have money for a capital project, for example, like you need to rent another building or a house or something so you have more rooms. So that would be the launch that you would probably get funding for, because you can demonstrate that you're already functioning with similar activities quite well. If you do have a new program, it doesn't mean you can't get funding if it's not something you've already currently been doing, but just be as thorough as you can on what your intentions are with this program and how you plan to implement that, so that they can see that you've really thought this through. You know how much it's going to cost, you know how to manage it, and you're prepared for any potential issues so that it can run smoothly and it will be a success, so that they feel that their funding is going to be used very wisely and will make a difference. That's what matters the most to them. Okay, down here is the impact on the community statement and any statistics you have on your current impact in the community, if you have it available. If you're brand new, you probably don't have this. So that's okay. But if you've been around a while, I certainly hope you have been keeping track of what you've done and how many people you've served or how often you've done the thing you've done and, the changes that you've made in your community that you've personally witnessed. I can't emphasize enough that even though if you're a new nonprofit, if you've been in operation even just a year or two, I do hope you document literally every single thing you do. Like, I held this event through, 4 times a year. We do it quarterly. We serve this particular, I don't know, I'll just pick a random category, community of people who, are abandoned by their families and they need support. And we try to provide, companionship services. I don't know. I'm just thinking of like elderly who are alone and they need, entertainment and connection with other people. And maybe you guys have people who come and provide, I don't know, pick a service. So many different varieties of nonprofits that I'm sitting here going, well, which one would I pick? I don't know. You bring music therapy, or you bring flowers, or you bring children who sing, or whatever. Pick your thing. Or if you've done actual, helping the homeless, or you've done something to do with medical situations in your community, like say you created a new program that meets a need that's not being met in your community because you have a lot of elderly who are not getting, I don't know, psychiatric care, for example. So if you've impacted those people and you've tracked all of the events that you've done with them and you've taken surveys or some kind of evidence of impact from the people who've received it, this is the part that probably would make the most difference. Or if you can demonstrate through growth of popularity of programs. Say you started out and you only had 15 people the first time. And then the next time you went, there were 30 people. And the next time you went, there were 100 people. That is demonstration of your program impacting the community to where it is growing and more people are benefiting because more people are interested, and it shows that people support what you do. All right, here, any inquiries, monitorships, government investigations, audits, other than routine audits. If you've had those, just check that here. This is, usually a flag of some sort that we need to worry about, and some may not give you funding for this, but it just depends. Down here is mostly for if you need help in these areas. So if you need help with your budgets, your board of directors, some people are still trying to figure that out. If you have no program evaluations or you need help or you already have them, if you have a website, articles of incorporation, which we certainly hope you have that by now. But if you're brand new and you're seeking assistance with getting your IRS 501c3 approval, then that's something that, we can help you with that as well. Your bylaws, your 1023, that's what I said if you're applying for 501c3 status, and if you want your information published on our website. So that's basically all of that. I know this is long. However, guess what? You're also going to learn how to write your own grants because it's helpful if you understand the process. So with this class, you're going to be crafting your own proposal. So in the forum right here, you're going to see these same questions, but you're going to have a space to answer those questions. In the form, answer the questions found on the client information form. That's this document that we just ran through, this thing. So write those same answers in the forum. I know it's a lot, but it's helpful for you to write your own proposal. So these are those same questions. We've written them out here for you, so you don't have to look at that form. So it's all in one nice place and convenient, and it's nice and streamlined. So just go through these questions here and write your answers. And when you do so, crafting your proposal, there it is. Hopefully it shows all of this. Just click on the answer button and write them in here and then post your answer. Okay. So that is everything for today. And I hope this was helpful. And I look forward to seeing you at the next class. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.